Well, thank you for staying with us. This is the AM show, and it's sponsored by Shield, Silicone Paste from Azar Group, Syntex Pipes, and Time Herbal Mixture. Now, immigration law can be complex, and navigating visas, work permits, residency, and citizenship rules can be really tricky for anyone moving across the borders. Now, today we're joined by Angela Moore, an experienced immigration lawyer, to help us understand the nuances of immigration law, the rights of migrants, and common pitfalls to avoid. You want to stay with us, and especially Angela, because the conversation came to the fore when our former finance minister, or deportation, extradition, and all of that. We thought that why not? You made a few posts, and we said, people think they understand immigration law. Yes. But not that much. So this is free consultation. After here, you have to pay to see Angela. It's good to have you, and thank you for joining us in studio.
Nice to be here.
Are you enjoying Ghana?
I am loving it.
Okay.
Thank you for asking.
Very much. Tell us generally about immigration law. A lot of people have heard about it, but they don't know when it really comes to play. What exactly is immigration law?
So, thank you for the platform. I am an immigration lawyer. I am Ghanaian. I'm also American. I've been practicing immigration law for the past 13 years exclusively. So I feel like I'm well positioned to be able to educate our people on immigration law and some of the ways that they can make things easier for themselves when they embark on this journey. Obviously, the immigration laws for different countries, not different for the United States, is to help people navigate their ways into migrating. Sometimes temporarily and sometimes permanently, right, in terms of green cards and such applications. And so the thing to note about the U.S. immigration law is that it's complex.
Is it?
Very complex. To put it in perspective, when I went to the United States, I was already an attorney here, called to the Ghana Bar. But because I hadn't been issued my own law license in the United States, I needed the services of an immigration attorney in the United States to help me to make the right decisions in being able to attain my citizenship. So it's not something that you can just read and do. You know, everybody has their field of expertise. And I think especially in immigration law, it's highly relevant that you retain the services of an immigration law attorney. It is going to frame or form the foundation for your entire existence, you know, in the United States. So why take the chance?
Right, and so why is it so important? So if I took you, Angela, as my immigration lawyer, I mean, I understand continuity of cases and all of that, but why is it important that I return you?
Really good question. So a lot of people mistakenly think that immigration attorneys complete forms. And so they look on the USCIS website. Of course, the forms are free. You can type and then print, or you can even print in ink. And they think, well, of course I can do this. But that's not the role of an immigration law attorney. My job is to anticipate some of the issues that you can encounter down the road based on your immigration history, so that I can present your case in a way that would, you know, preempt some of these things and even avoid them if at all possible, or minimize the risks to you.
Okay. I mean, a lot of people travel outside the country, work, visit, and even permanent residency. Unfortunately, we don't have that luxury anymore for permanent residency. What does that even mean? Explain to people what Trump meant when he said that. So,
you know, he is really, really trying to cram down on lawful permanent residency. They think there's just too many people of other countries in their country and they're taking jobs. All of that is false, obviously, but it's a narrative that they're trying to perpetuate. And it seems to be working well, at least for certain portions of the American public. But for now, what he's done is to place a pause. Okay. Which means that if you petition for, let's say, your spouse or your child or your parent, for them to be able to get green cards, they can go through the process. They can submit their documents, they can do their taxes, you know, the taxes that we submit to the embassies to make sure that you're able to support yourself in the United States. You can go through all the process and even be interviewed, but the visas would not be issued yet.
Oh my dear, okay.
You know, which
people travel, and in your years of experience, what's some of the common mistakes that every time maybe you have a potential client or a client sitting in front of you, like, oh God, not again. Same, most common mistakes that we do.
So I serve a lot of communities, a lot of countries. Because I'm in Ghana, I'll speak to the mistakes that I think our people make when they come. Typically, they would come on a visa and then decide, oh, I love it here. I want to stay. Okay, well, a little mistake, but not much. And then they talk to people who are not attorneys. They talk to people who are not immigration law attorneys. And then they then purport to direct their path into how they can get legal status. Huge mistake. Many of them enter into marriages too early, too quickly.
Why? Is it one of the most potent ways?
It is one of the most potent ways. And it is one of the fastest ways. And it's one of the most commonly known ways. Not the only way. There are several other ways. But that's what our people know. So you see somebody come in with a visa, 3 months later, they have divorced their spouse that was here in Ghana, and then they are already married. We know that naturally that's not how people move with their lives, you know. If you got recently divorced, you want to take your time and make sure you don't make the same mistakes again. But then with our people, you see them married immediately, and then they file immediately, and they don't have much. And then when they get called for interviews, maybe the spouses refuse to accompany them to interviews or produce documents that are relevant to their cases. And some of them just abandon the process completely. And therein comes ICE. That's why our people, some of our people find themselves in trouble with the current enforcement with ICE, because they already may have a removal order because they didn't really follow through with the process.
Okay. I mean, a lot of people are hearing ICE for the first time, but they existed yet. I mean, I'll say ICE is America. America is ICE, honestly. But because of how now they've been very intense with their mandate, would you say that a lot of Ghanaians have fallen prey to it? Are you getting a lot of people calling in because of this ICE situation? And what will be your role in that? Yeah.
Thank you. I'm getting a lot of calls from Ghanaians with respect to this. As I stated earlier, most of them are in certain situations with ICE because they have a history that now places them in the spotlight, so to speak, as far as ICE enforcement is concerned. Because if you've already missed a court interview, for instance, you have a final order of removal. Now, let me explain this myth, or kind of try to bust it a bit. People think that when you're detained by ICE, which by the way means Immigration and Customs Enforcement for US, they think that when you're detained, that you will be deported. It doesn't necessarily track that path, okay? Sometimes you are detained, and then that actually opens an opportunity for you to get your legal status fixed, because there are some benefits that you can only apply for when you are in deportation proceedings or when you're facing removal. For some of our Ghanaians, though, because they didn't follow through with the process and already had removal orders, when ICE detains them, they no longer have the option to apply for any of these benefits. Okay. And because there is already a final order of removal, then they are removed.
Let's take it back. What does it look like when they say that ICE has picked you up, or what's the process? So you're in your house, you're on the street somewhere, somehow, a van parks, you see ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement. What, they cuff you? Do they question you? What's the process like?
I think that it really depends on where they apprehend you. There are people who are actually in ICE buildings where they are detained. I think some of the handcuffing and things like that are just for the theatrics of it and the drama of it. Typically, they shouldn't cuff you, but they would detain you, which means you are not free to leave. Depending on where they pick you, they may keep you in state, or they may transfer you to another state where they have the nearest detention center, because they will house you sort of like a prison or jail of some sort. You'll be issued a number which we call the alien number, or A number. It is nine numbers, you know, usually now starting with 21 something something and the rest of it, and that's how you'll be identified. And then they will process you, look at your whatever property you brought in, you know, note it down, everything. And now they wait for you. They have to wait for a next hearing date for you, but you can move faster than how they move if you hire an immigration law attorney.
Okay. At what point should you hire an immigration attorney? Is it when they have picked you up?
Immediately. Picked you up. I mean, you would not have the opportunity to hire an immigration law attorney because you will be detained. Now you need family. Family must act quickly. You know?
Is it that when you're detained, certain rights are taken away from you? You can't ask that I need to see a lawyer, I need to make a phone call. You don't have all those rights available to you?
You do have the rights. So
okay.
You can make the phone calls, but they have to take you to a certain space where you can make those phone calls. Your family will be able to make these calls much faster than you can. Because once they know where you're being detained, they can reach out to an attorney who does detention work in that center, so that by the time you're there, they can already be talking about bond. You know, they would have given them any previous immigration documents that you have, so that the lawyer can have a bond packet ready and maybe make a motion for a bond hearing.
What's a bond pack?
Very quick. So a bond packet hearing is typically the documents that you need to submit to the judge, so that the judge can make a determination whether you should be released on bond or not.
The last time I checked the data, it's almost as if when you're in ICE detention, your chances of being deported are so higher than you staying. Is this a myth? It was true.
Let me tell you one of the main reasons why that happens. People are not used to jail. Okay, and so in a lot of instances, people say, you know what, let me sign on this dotted line and let me leave. Because suddenly you find yourself in this space where you're sleeping on the bunk bed, where you're being told to shower here and eat this food. That's a very unreal experience for a lot of people, and sometimes they just opt to leave.
Okay. So the numbers we see, the high level of deportation we see, if people just had the patience and went through, which means that you should have an immigration lawyer at hand already.
Well, that would be in the real world, ideally. Ideally, right? That would be an ideal situation, but I don't think most of us have, lawyers just that we are paying a retainer for just in case I get picked up one day. So most people would not have the luxury of that, but what you can do is don't sign any document that you don't understand. Okay, don't provide any answers to questions that you're not sure what the implications are, and then find an attorney. Let your family find an attorney immediately. That will give you the best chance of getting out of detention, and hopefully even with lawful status.
How long are you supposed to be in ICE detention before you're arranged to see an immigration judge or arranged to visit an immigration court?
It really depends on the size of the detention center and the number of people they are holding. Typically, within 2 weeks, they should schedule you to see the immigration judge to begin to do some procedural things. Okay, is there a reason why you should continue to be 15th? Okay, so your period of authorized stay has already expired. And yes, that is one area where it will fall under the purview of ICE enforcement and compliance with immigration rules.
An area that people won't forgive me if I don't ask you would be some of the things you said when Arise Ghana started the protest. It was quite indefinite, but luckily they have stopped. Yes. They have said that if the U.S. Embassy or the U.S. representatives here in Ghana will assure them that they can help expedite the extradition process, which I'm not sure how that can be possible. First of all,
to the judge that, okay, here, don't grant bond because this person has a request. But the bond hearing or the immigration court issues will be handled by the immigration judge. Extradition requests would not be handled by the immigration judge, but rather would be subject to review by another judge. So when you are here talking to a diplomatic mission about issues that don't fall within their jurisdiction or their operational manual, yeah, it may look good to the optics, but it doesn't really do much.
What interpretation should we put to the request by the current immigration judge who is overseeing the former finance minister's bond pact, I should say, that he'd like to see the extradition request that Ghana has made?
Asked to see the extradition request. I suspect that it's probably because he was inclined to grant bond, and because of this request, he held back his decision and wants to see, okay, let me see what the extradition request entails and see that informs my decision in any way, whether to grant bond or not.
I mean, back to Ghana, you talked about diplomacy. Apart from the optics of it, Arise Ghana, they're quite sure, they're certain that, well, it'll be in the news. Officials in the U.S. would see that this person is a person of interest.
Yes.
This is what it means to us if you deport the person back to Ghana. Barring the extradition request and focusing on the deportation, would it mean anything at all?
You know, I would say this. The U.S. immigration system runs on the U.S. immigration laws. Okay, it doesn't, we don't change it, or they don't change it because of protests. I know that there are certain circumstances in which some pressure can be brought to bear on governments or institutions to act quickly and maybe try to steer them in one direction or the other. But I will tell you this, he would go through the same process as everybody else.
Regardless.
Regardless.
Okay. I'm quite interested in how persons seeking asylum or on humanitarian basis, how the immigration laws will treat them. Does it treat them differently?
So they don't treat them differently. Obviously, the grounds for applying for asylum are very peculiar. They're unique to that. First, you must show that there is some past persecution or future persecution that you can face on some protected grounds, such as political, religious, or something special about you that makes you unique, so that you'll be more targeted than other people. Let's say if Mr. Foriata was inclined to pursue immigration, maybe he could say political. Now, just because somebody can make an asylum claim or filing doesn't necessarily mean it will be approved. In fact, they're very difficult to win. The thing, though, is they know the bond issue is still outstanding. If the judge were to grant the bond because he finds him to be not a flight risk and somebody that would appear for his hearings from outside of detention center, he could pursue asylum with that, but it will be on a non-detained docket.
Okay.
So now he's on the detained docket. His case will move to a non-detained docket and possibly before a new judge.
You want to break down what a non-detained docket means?
So, you know, docket is obviously the case load that the judges use. Detained docket will be cases for people who are detained. So that's the one that, that's the one in simple terms. You're detained, you're on the detained docket. You are not detained, you're on the non-detained docket. Okay. And so you go to court and then you go home. Or sometimes it could even be video call. WebEx is one of the ways that they are using. I think Mr. Foriata's was WebEx, and then other people try to get in, and so now it's being held in camera. But it's one that a lot of people use.
Of course, there's another extradition conversation in the fall about Sedinata Maklo. But my area of focus that I want to get clarity on would be the U.S. Marshals. When I think of the U.S. Marshals, what should come to mind? Now I understand typically what the ICE would be. Yeah. But what shall I think about the U.S. Marshals?
So they are more on the criminal side of things. You know, they can come if there's a federal charge against you that, you know, maybe it could be, because federal, you know, then the United States, there's state, and then there's federal. So you can commit a crime in the state, but because of the components of the crime, federal government may decide to be a part of it. For instance, if you use the interstate while you're committing the crime, they can say, well, you're on a federal highway, and therefore we have a much stronger, much robust federal prosecution team, and we would rather prosecute you under that. And so that's where the U.S. Marshals are coming, more for the federal government enforcement of certain criminals.
So for a former public official like Sedinata Maklo, who we understand that was picked up by the U.S. Marshals, as well is waiting for extradition processes or even deportation processes. The nuances are quite detailed. So what? The Marshals can pick you up, and if your challenge is quite immigration, they then will pass you or hand you over to ICE. Is this it?
Yes, they could. So you could be with the U.S. Marshals, and then they decide to put you in immigration. I will tell you, though, that if you are in the custody of U.S. Marshals, it means they want you for issues more serious than immigration. And so most likely immigration will defer to them unless, you know, they consider that, okay, we can have immigration handle that, issue a deportation order, and then we would now pick you up and pursue the other course of action. But I typically, there are even in some instances where you're charged with a crime, and then immigration picks you up, and then they release you to other agencies because they think that those people will deal with you more in the path that they want to. Yeah.
Let's talk about people who definitely want to travel to the U.S.
Yes.
If not temporal, but for permanent residency. I know that there's a temporal pause on it, but where should they start from? Where should you start from?
So the pause, let me say this again. The pause is for immigrant visas, not for visas, not for non-immigrant visas, which will be the typical B1, B2 tourist visas. There's no pause yet. There is some delay, there's more scrutiny to make sure that people that are issued those visas are likely to go on a temporary visit and come back to Ghana or to their respective home countries. So if you want to apply for a non-immigrant visa, tourist, it's still available. You can apply. Okay. And I know in the case of the World Cup, they're saying that they want to process these quite quickly. The rules will not change, okay? You still must show that you're going to visit and come back. So things like, if they ask you, when are you coming back? Well, think about it. No, it's not going to work. Okay? You have to tell them, I'm going to watch soccer and then I'm going to come back.
But for the other ways that people want to travel, not for the B1, B2, but for permanent residency, where should people, I know that people like to use routes that may not be safe for you to want to discuss on TV, but if a person is thinking of, listen, relocating from Ghana to a place like the US, where should they start? Beyond you wanting to call Angela, where should they start?
The first place to start cannot be beyond. They should call an attorney. So they need to talk to an immigration law attorney. And everybody's, immigration law is very fact specific. Everybody's circumstances could be different. But generally, there are investor visas. If you are wealthy, you have money, and you want to create jobs for people in the United States, they have categories of that, and that will also give you a green card. Short of that, honestly, while you're outside of the country, the options are quite limited, except for, where if a spouse is applying for you, or your parent is applying for you, or your child who is a U.S. citizen is applying for you. But it's very important that you seek the counsel of an attorney.
The crux of this conversation is you should seek the counsel of an immigration lawyer. Let me spend the last 5 minutes with you, getting to know you better. You say that you're both Ghanaian and American. Which part of Ghana are you from?
So I'm a Ghana.
Ah, you speak Ghana?
You're Gawa.
Oh, you're Gawa. Okay, and what, you were born here and then you had your legal education here in Ghana?
Yes. I was born here, I schooled here, I went to University of Ghana, and then I went to Ghana School of Law. I was called to the bar in 2002. So I think 23 years at the bar, going on 24. Geez,
that's a lot.
Test.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Which secondary school did you attend here in Ghana?
So O-level, I went to Asylum Secondary School in Osu.
Okay.
For sixth form, I went to Infansiman. Go Purple.
Congratulations once again.
Yeah.
So when I was telling somebody that I'll be speaking to an immigration lawyer, and she's been called to the bar for a little over 20 years, she says, is it the same lady? Please ask her, how old is she?
Oh, my goodness.
She just told you that she has twins. I mean, a lot of women don't like to tell their age, but would you like to?
No, I wouldn't like to. Let's just say I'm matured.
Enough to help you through your immigration issues.
Yes, and still young at heart enough to not make it too tough. I know how to lighten the mood and make it interesting.
I can see that. Where in America can people find you? People all over the world are streaming today, and maybe people didn't think that they needed an immigration lawyer. But by the end of this conversation, I like to think they know that
clients based on referrals. But I have two offices, one in Tennessee and one in Georgia.
Okay.
But of course, with immigration law in the United States, if you have license to practice in one state, you can practice all across the United States. So I have clients in New York, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, also in Georgia, and so many other places that I am yet to even go visit. So if you're in the United States and you have an immigration law problem, I am the
website we can visit to get more information?
Yes. So, well, my website is in Spanish, but it translates into English, but it's www.abogadaangela.com. I would put it in.
Okay.
things
Okay.
so that they can see. But you can find me on social media, Facebook, JJ Moore and Associates. I'm very active on social media. My team is very robust. I have a huge team. I even have some people. So if you get detained, please do not sign any document. I think it's absolutely important that you don't sign any document. Next thing to do, ask to speak to a lawyer, okay? And also get your family to find you somebody immediately. Start putting together your immigration documents. It's gonna become very important because remember when I said that immigration is fact specific. So your history will determine your future, so to speak, when it comes to immigration law. So start putting some documents together now that you know these things are coming up, so that in the event you get detained, your family is not now scrambling to find, okay, where's the passport, where's this and such and that, because that would make it much easier for you to get out of detention with a bond if you can find your documents.
Okay, that's a good place to start.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for joining us on the show today. Really pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. I've enjoyed it.
Watching the AM show, please stay this moment.